Hey folks! Hey folks! I sounded like a little girl inside this helmet. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I want to tell you a little story. This is a story told to me by my dad. We're out here riding on our way from Tennessee to North Carolina. We've got my dad on the Harley CVO. We've got Chad next to him. Now Chad, my dad's remarried, and his wife had a son from her previous marriage, and his name is Chad. He's a real cool cat. We enjoy hanging out with Chad. We don't get to see him very often, maybe once a year when we get to come back here, but we enjoy having him with us today. And then got Braden in front of me, and my brother Scab behind me. And my mind's just been going along a little bit today as I'm riding through these beautiful canyons. And I want to tell you a story that my dad told me while we were sitting down having breakfast this morning. As I've mentioned before, he's a physician, and throughout his life he's mostly been doing anesthesia on patients and pain management. But he told me a story that has kind of sunk in my mind about judging people. And there was a time when he was in the hospital and he was working, at that time, it's a little better now maybe, but at that day, years ago, he was in Alabama, I think, and he was doing anesthesia, and you'd have to take call, and sometimes call would be a day or two, or sometimes 3, and if you got a good call, you might only have to be called into the hospital a time or 2, but if it was a bad call, sometimes you'd be working straight for 2 or 3 days. And this was one of those times when my dad had already been working for 2 days straight and 2 full nights, and he was exhausted, just wanting to go home and sleep, didn't even care about eating anymore, you know. And they get this call, and you know, a lot of what he sees in the emergency room, gunshot wounds and stuff like that, have to do with just people who make bad choices, you know, things that like drug dealing and stuff like that, are just people that chose a path of ill behavior, you know. And so the more tired you get, the less tolerance you have for having to fix people and help people who make bad choices. You know, it's one thing to be motivated to help someone who's a loving parent or a loving child or whatever. You just want to do everything you can to help them. But then there's other times when you have people that just, you know, they're strung out on drugs or whatever, and it can be a little tough. And apparently this was one of those times when he had worked 2 full days, 2 full nights. He's on his 3rd day now. Had very little to eat, no sleep, and he's just exhausted. He's just about ready to go home, and he gets this call. They get this call in the emergency room. Such and such, black male, multiple gunshot wounds, barely breathing, you know, kind of thing. Profuse loss of blood. And so, of course, you know, the first thing your mind goes to is all the bad. And so this guy comes in, he's been shot probably, I think my dad said 7 or 8 times. And he was in bad shape, really bad shape. Well, you know, he's obligated to take care of this guy, so he buckles down and does what he needs to do and gets him stable, and they get him into surgery, and they take care of his wounds and whatever they need to do to, to help him survive. And 2 lo and behold, the guy survives. And apparently, when he came in, he was a big, muscular, like, I think he said 280 pounds or something like that. And like 280 pounds, big, burly fellow. And the guy ends up being in the hospital for I don't know how long. He's in there for a long time. So eventually he goes in to talk to this guy. And of course, he wants to find out what happened. The whole time he's thought, oh, this is some guy doing drugs or dealing drugs or something, and you know, he wants to find out the story, and it's going to be a lie or whatever. Well, come to find out, this guy is profusely thanking my dad for his role in saving his life, and that he just apparently this guy's life consisted of, he had a little small place that he lived in with his wife, and he would take in kids that were troubled, or adopted kids or whatever, that had no homes, that had no life, had no parents, had nobody to take care of them, or nobody to be with them, nobody to give them emotional support. And he would take these kids in and take care of them and raise them up. The guy had virtually nothing. I mean, he had nothing. Every bit of means that he had would go towards taking care of these kids. And apparently, some person who had a beef with one of these kids came to the house. And I hope I get this story right, but the guy came with a weapon. He was going to kill them all. And so this big boy that got shot, that my dad took care of, he sees this guy that he doesn't know coming up to the house, and he comes out to find out what's going on, because he's protector of these kids. Well, that guy pulls his weapon up and just starts shooting him, and he goes down. And I don't remember the story on how he got a gun, but I think he had to drag himself or something to get to a gun, but he was laying there bleeding to death. And the guy said, well, in his mind, he said to himself, I'm probably going to die anyway. I'm not going to lay here and die while that guy's going in there to kill my family. So somehow he gets himself up, gets his gun. I don't know how the timelines and everything, how this all worked out exactly, but he struggles on his way in there, and he finds this guy looking for that kid, and he shoots him and kills him. And then he lays down. He's ready to die. He's protected his family. None of the other kids were hurt. And then they call 911 and they take him in. And my dad takes care of him. So the moral of this story is, don't judge people, man. You never know the circumstances behind somebody's life, what makes them tick, what their circumstances are. My dad admits that he was exhausted, he was tired, he was hungry, he had no sleep, he was under a lot of stress and pressure, and the thoughts entered his mind of what he thought this guy was all about, only to find out that that's not what he was at all. That's not who this guy was. And what an amazing, had my dad not put forth 100% of his effort and try to figure out what needed to be done to help this guy survive, just think of the loss to that family and to the world that guy would have been. And so, moral of the story, try to love everyone if you can. You know, I know everybody's got their own opinions about life and how they run, how they work, but man, try not to judge if you can help it. You just never know. Anyway, hope you guys have a good day today. We're loving the riding out here. It's absolutely beautiful. Wish all of you the best. Have a great day. Duff Actor out.